Welcome to the Introduction series brought to you by freeaccesstutorials.com. This is part 2 of Introduction to Database Design. Last time we left off just finishing up making sure all of our tables had primary keys, but we were discussing on how to relate the tables to one another. So we're going to begin today by going through the different relationships. We're going to go over 3 relationships, and the first relationship we're going to cover is a one-to-one relationship. A one-to-one relationship is where one record in the first table relates to only one record in the second table. This relationship is seldom used. A one-to-many relationship, which the infinity sign we represent as many, we say a one-to-many relationship is where one record in the first table can relate to many records in the second table. This is the most common relationship. Now this can also be flipped around and be a many-to-one relationship. It just depends on which table you have on the left and which table you have on the right. It's the same type of relationship. The last we're going to talk about is a many-to-many relationship, which is where many records from the first table can relate to many records in the second table. This type of relationship is sometimes used. Going back to our data, in order to apply relationships, we need to have another element called a foreign key, which will be represented by the key symbol in the upper left-hand corner. Now, I prefer to keep my foreign keys right underneath my primary keys, so they're easier to find when I open my tables. So I'm going to make a little bit of space, and we're going to put in our foreign keys. Now, to explain this, as you can see for the customer phone number table, the foreign key I used was my customer ID number, which happens to be the primary key of my customer table. How it works is, when a customer's phone number is inputted into the database, it associates the customer ID number with that record. Now this is not duplicating data because it's simply a relationship. It's telling that phone number which customer it's supposed to identify with. So that's how the relationship is created. And it is a one-to-many relationship because one customer can have many phone numbers. You can also have 0 phone numbers, and you can also have 1 phone number. Now, if he has 1 phone number, that doesn't make it a one-to-one relationship because he still has the potential to have more phone numbers. So it's still a one-to-many relationship. As with the rest of the relationships that we chose to use. And as you can see, we used Social Security number and customer ID in the different tables for our foreign keys. The next rule that we are going to cover is rule number 3. Avoid data redundancy by storing data in one location. If we look at our sales table, we can see that we have salesperson's name and customer name. But under the salesperson's table, we also have salesperson's name. The problem exists when we go in and change the salesperson's name because we input it incorrectly the first time. So we put a different last name, and under each sales table, the salesperson's name is not changed. So they're supposed to be representing the same person, but they're different names. So the files get missed, the sale gets ruined, and it gets sent to the wrong address. So this creates problems, and we eliminate this by getting rid of the data redundancy. So let's get rid of salesperson's name and customer name, and we fix this by adding some foreign keys of customer ID number and Social Security number. And we create links just like we did before. So each salesperson can be associated with multiple sales, and this is done by when a sale is created, it's the salesperson's Social Security number is inserted and associated with that sale. So the sale knows who to go back to or which record to go back to in the salesperson's table and what is it associated with, as well as done with the customer ID. And the relationship on the right is a many-to-one relationship, and the other relationship is a one-to-many relationship. Now we pretty much have all of our data set up correctly, but let's go back and check our rules and make sure we're doing everything correctly. Rule number 1, a table must have a way to identify each record from another record. This is usually done by using a primary key. All of our records have primary keys, so we are fulfilling that rule. Rule number 2, break fields into separate tables if the field could have more than one occurrence per record. We have done this when we realized that our phone number could have multiple phone numbers, a cell, a work, so forth. And so we broke that into its own table. Rule number 3, avoid data redundancy by storing data in one location. All of our data is stored in one location, so we are fulfilling that rule. Rule number 4, break fields into separate fields if the data describes more than one element. We have also done this when we broke address into street, zip, state, and technically you could break all fields down even further until you get to the point where they're all just one letter long. But you have to use your common sense on this particular rule and stop at a certain point. So, rule number 5, break fields into separate tables if they are not dependent on the primary key. Now, we didn't cover this rule, but I'll explain that how we are fulfilling it. If you take a look at our customer phone number, the customer phone number is related to the table name or purpose. So each customer phone number is related to the customer phone number table. Each street is dependent upon the customer address. So all of the fields have to be dependent on the primary key and or the purpose of the table. So we've fulfilled all of our rules, and now we're ready to go on to the next video. So thank you for watching this video. Please visit us at freeaccesstutorials.com for more free videos on Microsoft Access. The next video in this tutorial series will be covering tables. We hope to see you soon.